Amulets vibrated in the air, carrying the faith of everyone present, but the consensus was clear. Wait, no one would take the risk. After all, this was a feared Class C tower. The Black Cat team, specialized in demon hunting, had never faced such an extreme challenge. After hearing the situation, Lord Lao reinforced that life was worth more than any reward. He declared himself responsible for everyone's safety. However, the master reminded his companions that an hour had already passed. Time was up. The other hunters were already engaged elsewhere. There was no turning back. Ignoring the team's reluctance, Lao Tian forced the opening. They were trained for the worst, and no obstacle would stop his squad. The seal was broken. The portal opened. The Black Cat squad was ready for the mission. The beast didn't intimidate these hunters. Their battle cry echoed, "The door has yielded!" and they advanced immediately toward the tower. It was time to turn skill into profit. Otian felt the weight on his conscience. They had spent their last coins on the Class C key. Entering meant leaving victorious and without casualties. The price was too high to fail. Lian froze, stunned. Where were the others? The team had scattered without receiving any orders, and rushing ahead was forbidden. Lao Tian tried to understand if they had all been transported elsewhere. It was confusing, but the focus was clear. Find the allies. That was the priority. A phantom hunter appeared behind the master, confirming Lao Tian's identity. Worried about possible monster infiltration in his perimeter, Lao Tian ordered him to search for additional reinforcements. The hunter noticed the others were already moving away and wanted to go ahead. Otian picked up a strange sound behind him and made a fatal mistake by ignoring the monster hunter sneaking up. The master turned around, demanding an explanation for that behavior. He claimed he was just a drifter, that he didn't want to help Master Lao find his friends, much less get dragged into trouble. But out of nowhere, he noticed a monster behind him and fell straight into the trap. The enemies were caught off guard, but luckily he spotted the creature just in time. The monster opened its mouth and warned that if he fell there, he would become food. The master was so shaken that he collapsed to the ground, unable to react. Lei Yin panicked and begged for help, but the monster continued advancing with malicious intent, while the master remained completely defenseless. It was then that Lao Tian noticed someone's silhouette and lost all hope, thinking no one would show up in that tower. But in the very next moment, that person appeared with full force and struck the monster with a blow so powerful that it prevented the old man from being hurt. The monster's attack amounted to nothing. The warrior inflicted deep wounds on the creature and showed no intention of sparing its life. Its fate was sealed. All that mattered was maintaining focus inside the tower. Lao Tian saw the monster's face being hurled several meters away by the sheer power of the strike, and he was astonished. He also noticed a sharp blade slash across the monster's face. It looked like the hero had arrived at the perfect moment to finish the job. With a single strike, he cut down the creature and saved Lao Tian, without leaving even a scratch on him. Lao Tian thanked the warriors profusely. Without them, he would have died right there. The monster was still prepared to attack the hunter, but one of the warriors stepped on the creature's body and told Lao Tian there was no need for thanks, since destroying dangerous monsters was practically routine inside the tower. He also explained that this demon was low level, easy work for someone experienced in fighting lycanthropes and other troublesome creatures. Lao Tian recognized the dagger and mentioned to his savior that the weapon was Class C, very valuable, and that the hero shouldn't leave it behind. But the hunter replied that he didn't need it, that Lao Tian could keep the blade, and that he should train more so he wouldn't end up completely helpless again. Even if it was a Class C dagger, Lao Tian knew that any weapon was already an enormous gift, and he had no reason to complain, since the warrior had just saved him from death. He also knew that among equipment of that level, daggers were usually the most expensive part, sometimes even pricier than Class B items, so he considered himself very lucky to have encountered warriors like them. The hunters noticed the presence of others inside the tower and asked which squad they belonged to. They couldn't answer, looking like mere intruders. The hunter pointed at them, showing his access key. Their debt had to be paid, or they would lose everything.
No one would dare challenge him again, but the demon hunter retaliated, saying they should thank him for being alive and inside the tower at all. Otherwise, the tower would have been their grave, and no one would ever find them. They wouldn't have stood a chance. The Black Cat members were furious. His insolent words and attitude were an insult, belittling them. Outraged by such brazenness, the hunters felt the urge to finish off the insolent one, to give him what he deserved. The decision was theirs. However, Master Lao Tian intervened, running toward his group and ordering an immediate ceasefire. The fighters questioned Lao Tian, asking if he had lost his mind. How could he act like that toward a man who humiliated his comrades and behaved with such arrogance? Lao Tian burst in agitation, explaining to his confused team that the stranger carried a Class C dagger. The warrior, however, didn't even look at the weapon.
The fighters were stunned by the master's revelation, calling him foolish. What kind of warrior ignored a Class C blade? At that very moment, the hunters began fleeing in desperation, shouting for help. A horde of monsters was approaching. How would they escape from the reptiles? Otien called out to the Black Cat squad. No running, no panic. They had to defend themselves from the monsters. The fight was unavoidable. The monsters, in their pursuit, breached the tower's safety barrier, threatening to unleash the warrior exhaled and charged toward the horde. It was clear he needed the exercise to keep his rhythm sharp and hone his combat skills right there. The monsters surrounded the warrior, but he openly mocked them, calling them worthless rabble. They had come for nothing, and he would teach them a lesson. The warrior began chanting a spell and commanded his fighters to emerge and crush all the monsters. The enemies then focused their attacks on the hunter. Without hesitation, the warrior bit off one of his own fingers. Master Lao Tian did well in staying put instead of fleeing. Now he would witness the warrior's true power and finally understand. The hunter used a technique, sealing a talisman with his own finger. In this tower, no opponent could match him. These monsters were pathetically weak. The fighter activated the technique, 9 drops of 100 demons, summoning hundreds of warriors. In an instant, skeletal fighters erupted throughout the tower. The warrior continued, calling forth hundreds of fearless combatants who were fully prepared for battle. This wouldn't even count as training. The hunter issued the command for the hundreds of warriors to advance. Together, they would massacre the monsters and surround them. It was crucial to discover the identity of the tower's master. The monsters saw an intense glow ahead. The warrior had summoned elite combatants. They had no chance whatsoever. He was unbelievably powerful. A massive explosion shook the tower. Hundreds of warriors annihilated their targets with ease, while the monsters could barely react. Lao Tian shielded his face as the shockwave from the massive strike hit him. He couldn't believe that stranger was such a powerful hunter. Master Lao Tian's eyes widened in absolute shock. The warrior was full of surprises. He could never have imagined an invocation of that magnitude. The unknown fighter began draining the essence and life force of the defeated demons. The outcome of the clash was unmistakable.
Yet Master Lao Tian couldn't grasp the reality of the scene. Team members whispered that what they were witnessing defied reason. Simple paper charms had transformed into a legion from the abyss. That warrior was a virtuoso of sealing, a rare talent. The stranger informed the fighters that he was only interested in the raw materials and monster cores. The rest of the loot, the equipment, was theirs. He wasn't driven by greed. The warrior continued to focus his energy. He was aware of the risk of distraction, which consumed many hunters after a fight. The stranger condensed a core of power in his open palm, refusing to let the energy disperse. His companion needed to consume it whole. He asked her to open her mouth and offered her the core. He showed genuine concern for her well-being. He would never allow her to be harmed. They were a team. The hunters watched the woman swallow the energy sphere. Was she a Draugr? The team was certain she was an elite Draugr. Everyone knew these beings came into existence when awakened individuals perished inside towers. They begged Chief Lao Tian for an explanation. Not even Lao Tian could explain the creation of that Draugr. He speculated about the imperfect draugr that circulated illegally and the amount of gems the warrior must have invested. Lao Tian finally understood why the warrior focused solely on cores. His companion needed sustenance, and he was seeking the necessary nourishment inside the towers. At that moment, the team heard a frightening crash ahead. Amid the confusion, they thought the safety barrier had been restored. Panic spread. What was happening? Hadn't the warrior exterminated the entire threat? Perhaps the tower's magical defenses were collapsing. The warrior confronted them about the seals, but they knew nothing about the tower's rules, nor the true purpose of entering a Class C tower. At that point, a new wave of monsters had awakened the boss. The warriors, on their knees, begged for the stranger's intervention. He replied that his role seemed to be that of a heroic savior, and that he would follow the old plan for the core to the letter. The unknown fighter informed his assistant, Yuan, that it was time to examine the boss's cavern to assess its threat level. Everything had been planned in advance. The warrior and Yuan entered the cave, noticing the sprawling spiderwebs. Countless lives had been taken there. It was evident that the tower's leader was powerful and cunning. The spider boss confronted the warrior for daring to wake her, demanding to know where he found such insolence. She would not forgive him. The spider leader attacked the intruder, wrapping him in an elaborate cocoon. His presence inside the tower had enraged her. The stranger remarked to Yuan that the enemy spider wasn't an easy opponent, and that although she lacked technique, her non-stop chatter was amusing. He promised her a surprise.
The Spider Tower boss vowed to retaliate against the outsider. He had invaded her territory and destroyed her monsters, but she would show no mercy. His life would end there. The mysterious warrior pulled out a paper figurine. He did not fear the boss and already had a flawless battle strategy. The stranger used the death seal technique, immobilizing the tower leader, leaving her no way to escape. To worsen her luck, she had crossed paths with him. The warrior pointed the figurine at the boss, maintaining full focus to avoid any sneak attacks from behind. The figurine began absorbing the leader's essence, leaving her paralyzed. The warrior neutralized the enemy with an unusual maneuver. Then he dissolved the figurine with surgical precision. The Spider Tower leader was doomed. He would show no mercy and make her feel every ounce of pain. A roar followed by an explosion echoed through the depths of the boss's tower. The warrior remained motionless. His planning and tactics had not failed. The tower's boss lost all vitality, unable to resist the unknown warrior who caught her off guard and struck her down with a technical maneuver. The spider leader collapsed to the ground, lifeless. The warriors finally relaxed. The danger had passed, and the elegant hero had saved them. They noticed the tower undergoing a transformation. The seal had been broken. The boss had been defeated. They concluded that the unknown warrior was their protector and praised him. However, the group noticed a disturbing detail. If the leader was dead, why did the environment still feel so oppressive and sinister? The tower wasn't disappearing. Everything felt strange. The mysterious warrior stepped in, explaining that this is why he warned them never to climb towers blindly. There was a reason the structure had not vanished. The stranger clarified the true cause. A second tower was embedded within the first, a hidden truth. He pressed against the wall and it instantly cracked. The warrior's lack of fear confirmed his theory. Within moments, the wall collapsed. The warrior urged all fighters to remain sober-minded. Confident in his own ability, he warned them not to proceed if they valued their lives, stating he would take extreme measures against anyone who disobeyed. Master Lao Tian was stunned. The truth was undeniable. A tower inside the tower. Approaching the new opening, he confronted the stranger, demanding his true identity. With an open gesture, the warrior declared to Lao Tian that he was the catalyst behind it all, the one responsible for unleashing the monsters and for the current global turmoil. And the claim was true. Despite the severity of the threat, curiosity outweighed fear. The warriors wanted to enter the inner structure, refusing to back down. The risk was extreme, but the promise of instant fortune was tempting.
Considering the ferocity of the enemies they had just faced, Otiano speculated about the possibility of unprecedented resources and a reward 10 times larger. Master Lao Tian signaled the decision. The group would enter, and the stranger would accompany them to ensure their protection.
The black cat scolded the fat member for hesitating, but he, claiming dizziness and fear, begged not to be forced. The warrior found the constant hostility and pressure on the group's weakest member strange. The outsider lit a cigarette, watching the scene with resignation. He understood that the pull of money and food was a basic law of existence, and that selfishness lay at the root of chaos and judgment. He realized that after countless years, the tower project was still incomplete. Convincing those people of their blind stubbornness was pointless. His mind drifted to the past. 15 years ago, on an ordinary day, spiritual structures with bizarre shapes had fallen from the sky. The warrior recovered all his memories. The towers ranged from 1 to 8 floors, with danger rising along with their height. Their arrival plunged the world into chaos. And that was the truth. Only one 9-story structure had appeared in a small village. Its presence changed the course of events, sealing the fate of 2 local children. The children approached an access point. A thug blocked the way, telling the boy he was hiding there, that he wouldn't be allowed through, and that a task needed to be done. His minions said the boy bragged about being the owner's favorite disciple, that he had been sent to the spiritual talisman shop and instructed to touch the ethereal tower. Seuss hid behind his mask, asking his friend to ignore the thugs. He warned him that the towers were dangerous and that they shouldn't even make contact. The thugs promised Seuss that if his friend dared to touch the tower, they would never lay a hand on Zhou Yuan Yuan. Seuss couldn't allow Wang and his goons to ridicule him. If he touched the tower, Yuan would be spared. With a serious expression, Seuss approached the structure. It was worn down and sinister. He would prove those troublemakers wrong. That was a fact. Seuss touched the spirit-pacifying tower. His only wish was to protect his friend Zhou Yuan Yuan from attacks and defend his sister. Seuss froze, shocked, not understanding why the tower's gate had opened by itself. He had done nothing, which he found strange and terrifying. He saw a creature before him and questioned whether the warnings about spirit-pacifying towers were true. He should have checked everything. Suddenly, the creature opened its eyes, scanning the area and the children who had awakened it from its deep sleep. Seuss was in shock, completely paralyzed, but the monster remained still, as if it already had plans. At that moment, the monster lunged toward the boy, approaching the tower without success. The thugs, terrified, fled the scene, screaming for help. The seal had been broken, and demons poured into the area, spreading fear. Villagers begged Seuss's mother not to approach because of the creatures, but she insisted on entering, saying the danger no longer mattered. She said her son was inside, and she needed to find him, while the people pleaded for her to save herself, assuring her the boy was strong and would survive. Then, demonic creatures appeared before Seuss's mother. They were ecstatic to find fresh prey on solid ground, free of distractions. She knew the people were right, but she felt pity for the monsters. They were too close, and there was no time to escape. The creatures destroyed the village homes and took countless lives. They showed no mercy, seeing humans only as food. Seuss's mother wanted to give her son a sweet, but couldn't find him. She could only hope her little angel, Seuss, hadn't been hurt. Seuss concluded that it was his fault for not being listened to. There was no other choice.
He tried to dissuade them, issuing an urgent warning about the danger. The Black Cat members noticed the hidden chamber was vast yet confined. No beast was visible. Why then the obsession with mirrors? Susanoo ordered them to stop being naive. No structure offered gifts. The rule was absolute. Greater reward, greater threat. Susanoo pointed out the thickening mist and demanded they stay together. If anyone fell, it would be their own responsibility. He would not be their savior. Not long after the hunters collapsed, their legs useless. The journey had drained them to the point where death lurked at the minimum. One warrior begged for rest. The fighter asked Guy to hydrate the friend, restoring enough energy to continue. The Black Cat would not abandon him. Suddenly, the squad leader screamed in terror. He pointed. Brother Y had vanished. Pure magic! Master Lao Tian tried to contain the panic, promising a logical explanation and that Brother Kanong would be found. But Master Lao Tian froze as more squad hunters dissolved. Whatever was happening defied understanding. The squad had fallen into disgrace inside that strange chamber. Susanoo noticed Su Yanyan's absence. He didn't know when he had failed, when he'd lost her, or why. At that moment, a mocking laugh broke the silence. The fighters recoiled, but prepared to face the being who had stolen their companions. A female voice addressed them, saying they were lucky to find her refuge in the tower. She admitted she had misjudged them, but would correct her mistake. The mirror demon appeared, asking if she should reveal their fate or keep it hidden. She confessed that playing with humans was a rare delight. Susanoo solemnly demanded the missing hunter's whereabouts, warning her of the difficulties ahead if she refused. The demon mocked them, saying she devoured other beings and that humans tasted better than demons. Why, after all, did warrior Susanoo care about them? The squad began to be tormented. The demon reveled in their panic reflected in the mirrors. The terror of death on their faces pleased her, and she planned to trap them all. Master Lao Tian was horrified, asking if everyone was dead. He refused to believe his warriors had fallen. The demon lifted the yin-yang mirror, ready to punish the insolent hunters driven solely by greed. Immediately, a personal reflection appeared for each hunter. They were stunned by the demon's power and unsure how to react. Master Lao Tian fell back when he saw his daughter in the mirror. He questioned the apparition, this demonic manipulation. His daughter asked if he didn't recognize her, and accused him. Without his decision, she would still be alive. He alone was to blame. Master Lao Tian admitted his guilt and begged forgiveness. He had no escape, but to surrender and love her. He deeply loved his daughter. Susanoo saw his mother in the reflection. It couldn't be real, she had died years ago, but he had always dreamed of her return. His mother, uncle, and aunt appeared happy. They invited him to follow them, saying they had little time left for him. Susanoo was stunned, asking how his mother was there. It was a mystery. She asked forgiveness for not protecting him, but said she had found him, would never abandon him, and would shield him from all harm. She longed to speak with him. Suddenly, Susanoo's mother became hideous, repeating that they would be together forever, and that she would take him. It wasn't Lao Tian's daughter, but a monster copying her form. The master realized he was hallucinating. The creature before him wasn't his daughter. A squad member screamed in panic upon seeing a winged rat. How could such a creature exist there? Why didn't people know the evil rats brought? His heart ached. He remembered his mother and relatives. He had failed to save them and would never forget the terror and the screams. The mirror demon declared that as long as someone lived, they held desires, the root of all evil. The best was to free them along with their bodies, turning them into food. Susanoo fully agreed. No one escaped that trap, for humans carried too many wants and emotions. That was a fact.
At that instant, Cao Yanwan charged toward the mirror demon. Sui questioned why she acted like that, since Draugrs had no emotions or desires. The demon panicked. How had a Draugr appeared among humans? She hadn't detected it. The Draugr caught her off guard. It was a mistake. Cao Wenwen struck a powerful blow. The mirror demon would be punished for threatening Sui's master. The Draugr would not forgive her. Sui explained to the demoness that her technique worked on humans, but Draugrs had no consciousness. Destroying the mirrors dispelled all illusions. They vanished. Sui saw Master Lao Tian and the other fighters collapsed and asked the demoness if she had any other tricks. The creature mourned the loss of her mirrors, but insisted the tower was still hers and she would kill them. Cao Wenwan attacked the demoness, who warned the Draugr it was pointless. As long as mirrors existed, he would never catch her, and he would become her food. The mirror demon begged Sui to reveal what he had seen in the mirror, showing deep interest in his desires and emotions. Something about him intrigued her. She asked if Sui had killed those people, if they had died because of him, or if he didn't know why they were dead. He found her irony amusing. Sui lit a cigarette, preparing to face the mirror. The mirror demon tried to rival him, still babbling despite repeated warnings. Consumed by fury, Sui confronted her. If she was so attached to mirrors, he would destroy them. He wanted to test her abilities without special artifacts. The demoness laughed, asking whether the irritated warrior truly intended to order the Draugr to break her precious mirrors. She had understood his plan. Sui replied by asking if he thought he only meant to break the reflection, assuring her that in the end, no fragment of her would remain. Sui activated the wind technique, transforming into an illusory dragon. The mirror demon regretted underestimating him. A massive wave of energy surged. The demoness wouldn't escape. She would seek revenge for having her emotions manipulated. Sui continued smashing the mirrors with his technique. The demoness clearly couldn't block all attacks, and rage took over her. Sui asked Xiao Yanwan about the talisman. She had already agreed to use the transformation talisman. This was crucial. Xiao Yanyan summoned the lightning talisman to protect Brother Sui from such a dangerous opponent. Together they would defeat the mirror demon. Confused, the demoness questioned Sui's tactics, for she knew nothing of his techniques. Everything about him was strange. Sui Sirius told her his goal was to eliminate her. She lost focus, no longer seeing him as an equal adversary. Sui ordered Xiao Yanwan to use the lightning talisman again. They cornered the mirror demon, who was on the verge of collapse. A tactical success. Xiao Wen destroyed all the demonic mirrors with electricity. Chief Sui had devised a brilliant plan whose strategy left the fighters stunned. Xiao Yanyan seized the demoness by the neck, telling their enemy she was captured, and she had misjudged her weakness. Sui used a powerful Class C talisman. He hoped the demon's mirrored core would be worth the effort. Otherwise, he would have eliminated her without elaborate techniques. The mirror demon explained that he had conjured a whirlwind to gather the mirrors and then used the heat of the lightning to melt them. She felt cold, but she repeated this was still her tower. Sui didn't understand her meaning or confidence. The mirror demon was still alive. Suddenly, the demoness struck him with brutal force. Without doubt, he was worthy of becoming her vessel, and with his body, she would gain recognition from the boss. The mirror demon landed a devastating blow on Sui. Xiao Yanwan had no time to protect her master. The cunning creature inflicted pain on the chief and tried to invade his mind to strengthen herself. His combat abilities were on another level. The mirror demon sensed another creature inside Sui's mind, but couldn't understand its origin nor the other secrets he hid. The warrior observed the parasitic being in his mind, trying to uncover its origin. It seemed deeply linked to his brain. He longed to decipher the mystery. In one of the creature's eyes, which emerged from Sui's mind, he had already noticed the word disaster. That was likely the reason behind Sui's fear.
So, someone wished the mirror demon a good night. She had been expecting visitors and wanted to talk. The voice explained crucial details about the mental invasion into her target's consciousness. The surprise actually pleased her. Now they could solve every problem at once. The mirror demon listened to the woman and sensed a presence behind her. She scanned the place, feeling danger lurking nearby. On impulse, the demon lunged at the feminine figure that appeared inside her host's mind. But the lady warned that the attack wouldn't affect her. She told the demon to stay quiet and declared herself superior. No one there could hurt her. The woman restrained the demon with her tongue, inhaling her scent with delight. By luck alone, the mirror demon begged for forgiveness and promised to leave. Yet, at that moment, the lady devoured the mirror demon. She swore she would never forgive anyone who dared invade her mind and dismissed the incident as a simple mistake. The woman was ecstatic. The taste of the mirror demon was incomparable. She even wished for many more demons to come her way. Susei appeared behind the woman and asked who she was. He had destroyed the demon effortlessly, something they should have expected. Susei questioned the creature about the feast inside his head and how she had emerged from the tower within his mind. The woman interrupted, greeted him, and introduced herself, Heijo, the Black Catastrophe. She was pleased that Susei had stepped into her lair. Heijo revealed that he had been lucky to activate the Heavenly Tower, but warned that he now only had 3 days to live. Susei needed to figure out what that meant. Confused, Susei asked what Black Catastrophe even meant and why he would die in 3 days. Was he doomed? Strange. Susei confessed his looming tragedy. He couldn't die before surpassing his level in the Heavenly Tower. He didn't even have a wife yet, and it was way too early. The Black Catastrophe said she didn't care about his personal worries, but without her being sealed there, he wouldn't have any strength at all. Heijo explained that if Susei hadn't spent so much time hunting tirelessly, he would have collapsed from exhaustion long ago inside the tower. But instead, he managed to awaken her. Heijo declared that her appetite was enormous, and she would absorb Susei's spiritual power within 3 days. Susei then asked Heijo to promote him to level C. Heijo, the Black Catastrophe, replied that with such a weak body, he would never withstand the force. Susei asked if, in case of his death, she would absorb his energy anyway. He believed in his ability to ascend, but the Black Catastrophe had no hesitation. She would destroy him entirely, wiping out any hope of becoming stronger. Heijo, the Black Catastrophe, stood up and informed the chief that her temperament was explosive, and that kind of force would cause a catastrophic collapse in him. The Black Catastrophe imposed a condition. To access her power, Susei must reach level A, and in return, he must cure the Drowser. Susei was stunned. Was Heijo really talking about Chao Yuan Yuan? He believed the Drowser's condition was irreversible. Was there truly a cure? The Black Calamity assured him that nothing was impossible. Once Susei became strong enough, Heijo would reveal the secret to curing Yuan Yuan. She warned that the weight of his desire would be the price to pay. Susei accepted without arguing.
The Black Catastrophe showed interest, thanking Susei for awakening her. He had prevented the creature from destroying them and had saved her life. The Black Calamity gifted Susei a talisman that would help him level up. The chief must always believe in his own potential. Susei asked about the talisman's unusual appearance. Heijo explained that it held a portion of her power and energy. The Black Catastrophe instructed him to use it when he was in danger, as her power would help him defeat any enemy. The Black Calamity ended by telling little Susei not to dare die. He was now obligated to protect himself and avoid unnecessary risks in battle. She would always be with him. Outside, the Black Cat Squad kept trying to revive warrior Susei. He finally woke up, but didn't react to their shouts or words. Susei wondered if he had lost consciousness entirely. The warriors told their chief that he had scared them. When they regained consciousness, Susei was still motionless. Master Lao Tien handed him the remaining core of the mirror demon, saved especially for the leader. Susei took the core. Master Lao Tien lamented that only 2 members remained in the squad. The others had failed. It was terrible. Master Lao Tien calculated that the 2 of them alone wouldn't have enough money to cover the taxes and invited leader Susei to join the team. Susei refused. He had greater commitments and no time for missions with them. Master Lao Tien understood. A master of Susei's caliber would never join a squad like theirs. Besides, he had defeated all of them by himself. Susei proposed a plan to help Lao Tien get rich, assuring him that he genuinely wanted to assist them. Susei offered the squad the opportunity to enter the towers with him, but with one condition: no protection. Inside, everyone would be on their own. Master Lao Tien was shocked. Warrior Susei was serious. He never expected such generosity from his friend. Otien grabbed his companion's leg, telling the fighters that if they needed money, they should follow Susei to the Demon Suppression Office. The warrior then asked Master Lao Tien what draugrs were and why they consumed crystal cores. He showed great interest in learning everything. Master Lao Tien listened closely. Susei was new and lacked crucial information, but Uncle Lao would reveal it all. Master Lao Tien explained that in the beginning, many people entered the towers blindly, underestimating the danger. It was a mistake. They rushed in without thinking, driven by greed and ambition. They wanted to surpass everyone else. As a result, they obtained riches and resources. Some even awakened abilities and became hunters. However, they ignored the real danger. They disregarded wise advice, focused only on easy profit. During that madness, many became sacrifices, dying and being transformed into monsters controlled by the tower. They were those who, after death, wielded spiritual power with corrupted minds, the draugrs. The draugrs were immortal puppets of the tower. Master Lao Tien asked them not to worry about Yuan Yuan. Draugrs were naturally cruel, but they changed when they found a master who fed them. Keeping a draugr in human form is difficult. Few cores can be found per tower, and the higher the Draugur's rank, the greater the energy needed. Susei held the talisman. Master Lao Chen deduced that this Draugur had been very important in Susei's life. Susei instructed Cao Yuan about the metamorphosis talisman, which had almost been destroyed by lightning. He asked her to take it and finish Cao's mission. After some time, the hunters arrived at the demon suppression office. Master Lao Chen described the incredible structure to Brother Susei, who was astonished. Susei acknowledged that Lei Tian's office managed everything: guilds, awards, rewards, and evaluations. It was truly an impressive place. A member of the squad asked Master Lao Chen if he could look around. They saw so many famous hunters they never expected to encounter. Luck was on their side. There was the Black Raven squad. The legends said their leader had taken down an A-rank tower alone. He was unbelievably strong. The fighter also noticed the Midnight Rose squad. They were all stunning women, and he never imagined they also belonged to demon suppression. Susei told Cao Yan to wait at the entrance, but the squad member ignored him, running after the beautiful hunters to ask for autographs. Cao Yan quietly obeyed her brother's orders. She only felt safe at his side. Susei approached the administrator to request a mission in an all-girls school. He would appreciate it if she gave some attention to the fighter accompanying him. The administrator understood his intention. She asked for the gentleman's name and rank in order to assign the task. The demon hunter introduced himself as Susei, ranked Shi, master, someone who never gave up and was capable of completing any challenge. The administrator was surprised by the details, revealing that it was a B-rank mission. She asked if Mr. Suso was certain. Suso questioned her concern, clarifying that he would not be the one going. He was only requesting the mission, and that he would surprise everyone. The administrator informed him that the tower key would be delivered soon, as the situation was about to become critical. She urged speed. The clerk was discouraged, thinking Susei was very handsome, but convinced he was heading towards certain death. Why was he rushing into a B-rank tower? Suddenly, someone approached Susei from behind, asking if it was really him. The man said he would never forget the fighter's face and wanted to discuss some details. Walking arm in arm with a woman, he asked if, after so many years, Susei had finally reached the rank of Shi. He was happy for his friend and invited him to join the White Tiger Squad, protectors of the weak. He mocked him, asking why he never saw Cao Yuan in the headquarters and how he could forget that she had died. He was pathetic. At that moment, Susei lunged at the scoundrel, ordering him to repeat that in front of Cao Yuan. He wanted the man to feel all his fury, leaving no room to run. Holding a talisman, Susei marched forward, calling him an idiot, begging to die. He promised he would handle everything without mercy.
Guards raised their weapons, ordering Susei to stop immediately. Attacking someone inside the headquarters violated the rules. They surrounded Susei, warning that fighting was prohibited and demanding he drop the talisman or face consequences. The Black Cat Hunter was shocked by Leader Su's reaction, blaming the opponent for provoking him. The bully asked if Susei had heard the order. He wondered whether the guards would confiscate the talisman or forcefully expel him. Susei shoved the fool aside, calling him useless trash, incapable of saying anything coherent. The man grew furious, demanding to know what Susei had just said. The demon hunter was enraged and vowed revenge for such insolent behavior, promising that the wretch would beg for mercy. The hunter stormed toward the administrator, declaring that his White Tiger Squad would take the mission at the girls' school and demanding full mobilization. The demon hunter was delighted. This time, the enemy would be wiped out and wouldn't escape the White Tiger Patrol, which would strike from behind. But before he expected it, Zhao Yuan struck him across the face with a full-force kick. She would not allow him to harm her brother Susei. Susei warned the enemy that his face screamed dissatisfaction. If he had courage, he should go to the school. Everything would be settled there. Susei asked if the scoundrel understood, ordering him to remember that now Zhao Yuan could also fight back. The White Tiger Squad hunter agreed with Susei and promised not to interfere, heading to the school. The hunter hesitated. Wasn't that Zhao Yuan, the one who had died? He could have saved her, but it was too late. He remembered everything. The hunter noticed soul-sealing beads and a suppression spell.
That meant Zhao Yuan had become a draugr. It was terrible. The hunter was right. A draugr like Zhao Yuan was worth a fortune on the black market. He needed to report this to his chief. The hunter shouted at the guard, asking why he was standing still watching the attack. They only settled conflicts between hunters. The assistant asked Sister Chanxian if that was the hunter she always mentioned, showing interest. Shinun, leader of the Jinrong squad, had been observing him for a long time and was eager to meet him. His potential was impressive. The assistant commented that the fighter looked like a thug and wondered if he was hiding information. Shinxian agreed. The assessment was accurate. He was definitely a delinquent, and she wanted to uncover his secrets. He was unusual. Leader Shinrong, Chanxian, approached the administrator, demanding honest answers. The administrator greeted the miss. Shinxian asked what Susei was doing there. He didn't appear out of nowhere, and she knew it. The administrator said Miss Chenxian was always right. He had just accepted a mission at the girls' school and feared no one. Shinxian was stunned. Wasn't the hunter a she rank? Why had they allowed him to go on such a dangerous mission? The administrator explained that there was a rule. If a hunter insisted, they could not deny the request, and the White Tiger leader had departed as well. But Chinzion intervened, saying she herself would go to the school to check on her son and see whether he had been injured by the monsters.
That night, Susei went to the main office. He did not fear the creatures. Sao Yuan was always ready to protect him. Susei was determined to shield his sister from any danger. She revealed to the soldiers that the tower's entry barrier was unstable and that she had volunteered for one reason. She wanted to ensure her brother's safety. Lado Yan asked if they could delay the return. The hunter replied that they would only retrieve what was necessary and would not trouble the chief. Susei revealed the truth to the warriors of the Black Cat Squad. They could act however they wished. They followed him entirely of their own free will. No one had forced them to enter the tower. Susei walked toward the portal, passing through without resistance to complete the mission and gather food for Sao Yuan. Susei crossed the portal, assessed the surroundings, and noticed that the building was under complete control of the tower. He would resolve the issue quickly. He warned Sao Yuan that the tower's energy was leaking and that they needed to hurry. There was no time to waste. He took command. Susei declared that it was time to obtain B-rank cores and that he would not let his sister go hungry. He would find plenty of corn kernels to feed her. At that moment, a student appeared before Susei and Sao Yuan, approaching without fear. She explained that she was a student and that B-rank towers were indeed impressive and that she had not accepted the mission for nothing. She didn't feel well and sought out Susei, begging for help, hoping he could save her. She was lucky to have met him. Susei saw the woman in uniform and realized that the students had been influenced by the tower. He was forced to intervene, but then the student's expression changed. In B-rank towers, hunters needed to be extremely cautious, for monsters were abundant. In that instant, the student transformed into a creature, attacking Susei, eager to taste the flesh of a hunter. Both came face to face with the beast. Susei stared at the creature and remarked that her face was ordinary, but her body and shoulders were incredible, worthy of a supermodel. He wasn't lying. The student began using a technique she believed would defeat the hunter. Why did they think they could invade her tower and steal her possessions? The movements of the student showed she wasn't just a puppet. This tower was more fascinating than he had imagined. He was pleasantly surprised by the twists. Susei grabbed a talisman, demanding that the monster reveal its true identity. He tried to help her, but the huntress didn't care. Susei unleashed a rain of talismans. The creature was doomed. There was no escape. Why then was she running straight toward him? How strange. The apex almost reached Susei. He didn't hesitate. He had fought so often, he had become immune to battles like this. But this monster was ferocious and wouldn't let the hunter escape. She believed she would catch him and make him suffer. In vain. Susei had underestimated her abilities. She was extremely strong. As he suspected, the creature was a yaksha. These beings take other forms and can vanish into the air to avoid attacks. That was a known fact. Susei was shocked. He had just entered the tower and already encountered a yaksha. Yakshas usually transform into powerful beings. Why then had it taken the form of a student? Susei silenced the yaksha creature and ordered Sao Yuan to dispatch the monster quickly. While he pondered the situation, Sao Nguyen leapt into the attack.
Cyan Gwen charged at the yaksha, who did not seek refuge.
attacking Susei's sibling was a mistake that would lead to punishment. Susei had expected this, knowing the Yaksha could not maintain her ability indefinitely despite her weaknesses. He wanted to assess her strength right away. Meanwhile, another monster, positioned on the rooftop, observed the duel. It possessed overwhelming strength and an imposing aura. The creature addressed the hunter. It wanted him as its servant, promising that together, their abilities would make them unstoppable. The monster opened a container, revealing a diabolical plan. It intended to subdue the hunter Susei. Many hunters feared approaching B-level towers. The monster released Gu, the mosquito, trusting the assistant to complete the mission. The mosquito Gu approached, and the monster urged her to enslave the hunter Susei without hesitation, promising support. Susei was focused on the Yaksha and didn't notice the mosquito Gu on his flank, putting him in critical danger. The Yaksha leapt, attempting to strike down the hunter who dared enter the B-level tower and anger them. Who did he think he was? Susei demanded that the Yaksha reveal her original form, criticizing her stubbornness for still attacking after defeat. He defended himself with agility, remarking that he preferred the student's previous appearance, but beauty meant nothing. He ordered her to hand over the core to avoid torture, reminding him of his superior strength. Susei pinned her down, demanding the core for Cao Yuanyuan's vitality. At that moment, a violent explosion erupted, and the blast shattered his talismans. The Yaksha took the chance to strike the weakened opponent. Her core was extracted. Susei was lucky to survive the blast. He had calculated the risk, showing exceptional intelligence. Unexpectedly, the mosquito Gu stung Susei on the neck, taking advantage of the distraction. The monster shouted triumphantly. The hunter now belonged to them. Susei lost his concentration from the intrusion. The mosquito Gu flew away to safety. The chief would personally take care of the hunter. Cao Wen appeared shocked to see her brother altered and unresponsive. She asked whether the creature had affected him. The main monster was ecstatic. They had captured one target and gained a second hunter as a vessel. Delighted that they had come alone, the monster told Susei and Cao Wen that with their help, he could access the tower. No one else would be able to. The monster tried to seduce him, saying the handsome hunter was very attractive. She didn't want to hurt him, and they would have many tasks to complete together. She ripped the ceiling core from Cao Yuanyuan's food. In return, she showed interest in the nature of the beast, finding her charming. The monster placed the core into Cao Yuanyuan's mouth. Suddenly, Cao couldn't hold back. The taste was delicious. She enjoyed the flavor and recognized it. Susei was deeply shocked. It wasn't a hallucination. Cao Yuanyuan could speak again. It seemed that woman possessed unique powers and abilities. The lady invited Susei and Cao Yuanyuan to follow her, promising that if he accompanied her, he would become rich. And it was true.
At that moment, the White Tiger Squad arrived at the school tower. A member told the chief that the tower was terrifying and asked if they should all proceed. The leader, Ji Biao, replied that the place was perfect. They could eliminate Susei with no witnesses. A hunter warned the chief that Cao Wanwan had beaten him and that they should not underestimate her. If she was strong, Susei certainly wasn't weak. But Chief Ji Biao retorted that the subordinate was simply weak. Draugrs grew stronger by consuming cores, so they shouldn't hunt women. Eviao said Draugr prices were at their peak and that they would sell Cao Wanwan. Susei was a low-rank master, weak and cowardly. Ji Biao stated that if Susei hadn't exposed his dark magic, he wouldn't have been expelled from the Jinrong squad, and now he would take revenge on the weakling. At this moment, the lady and Cao Wanwan entered the tower. The woman noticed the abundance of demons searching for prey. She began using her technique, reflecting that human greed had no limits. She didn't want to harm them, but they had invited danger themselves. The monster released poisonous insects and ordered the attack. The enemy's fate was sealed. The insects wiped out the monsters, clearing a path for the chief. She was 100% certain the hunter would reveal all his talents. The lady instructed the monsters to serve as food for the starving insects. It was a gift that spared no creature. Susei was glad the woman had digested many of his problems and happy he had nothing to do. The result was convenient. The woman destroyed all the monsters, eliminating interference in her plans.
She followed her strategy, and the hunters obediently followed her lead. There were countless cocoons on the ceiling. The monster expressed a desire to know their origin, sensing the lack of vital information. It was a revelation for the chief. The monster was confused about the cocoons. She had never heard of weaving demons. Perhaps they were genetically modified creatures. The monster woman ordered the handsome hunter to remove the cocoons from the ceiling. Susei lit a cigarette and replied that she couldn't fly. The woman was left in complete shock. The creature's astonishment was obvious. A hunter vocalizes? Susei dismissed her surprise with sarcasm. I'm not mute, and a mere drop of poison doesn't silence me. He leaned toward Sao Wan and, in a confidential tone, instructed, punish her. Like always, let it be a lesson for trying to manipulate us. The monster tried to invade the hunter's mind, but every attempt failed. Susei considered her effort pathetic, a complete failure worthy of contempt. Suddenly, desperate, the monster grabbed Susei's ankle, pleading for forgiveness and begging for help to rescue the young students. The hunter, invoking a talisman, kept his focus, declaring that rescuing souls was not his priority. The monster insisted, promising that in exchange for his help, all of Susei's demands would be fulfilled, with firm guarantees. The monster leader anticipated the outcome. Susei, however, ordered the creature to prepare for reality. If the captives were truly students, she should give up now. Helping them was impossible. Terror consumed the monster. The truth was inconceivable. The tower had materialized suddenly in front of the school, sealing the students' fate. Against all expectations, the cocoons began to tremble. They needed extreme caution. Something began to emerge.
Susei watched closely, trying to understand the origin and creator of these peculiar abominations. At that moment, the monstrous Kinara burst from the cocoon, executing her master's orders and annihilating any opposition within seconds. Susei asked the monster if these creatures were the students, but she warned him of the danger. Determined to crush the monsters, he held a talisman, assuring that Sao Yuan would be safe under her brother's protection. His seal triggered a technique. Heaven and Earth, reverse dungeon of the roaring flame of the fire god, oath and fury of the four cardinal directions. Susei unleashed the fire monkey talisman to sow chaos and protect his sister. The Kinara attacked, firing a beam from its mouth and using forbidden techniques to kill. Susei's attack was dispelled by the Kinara, who remained unharmed. He did not expect such proficiency. More Kinara continued emerging from the cocoons. The situation was unsustainable. They were far too many and far too powerful. The innate strength of the newborn monsters was alarming. Susei's talisman failed. The monster woman decided to intervene, but an outside voice interrupted Susei and Zhou Yanwen. Should we join the fight? Others were involved. Frank, from the Black Boar squad, instructed his companion not to interfere, but to observe the battle. That way all the attributes will be ours, he said. His partner understood, so basically we do nothing. Frank ignored the provocation and only commented that the Kinara were far too strong for ordinary hunters to defeat. One of his companions wondered if, should the others fail, they themselves would stand a chance, since the leader wasn't around and their group was visibly weakened, and that was true. Frank simply said they were there to gather information, and the leader had ensured he had already found what he wanted. There was something inside that tower connected to the monsters, and Susei and the monster lady were trying to analyze what was going on. Frank, distracted, commented that the girl was pretty, and that if she lost, they would hand her over to the others so they could have fun with her. This unsettled Susei, who warned that the monster woman needed to be careful because she was in danger. At that moment, the Kinara struck unexpectedly and tried to capture her. Susei realized he was trapped, and concern for her, ended up ignoring his own situation. Kinara wrapped him in a cocoon made of web. The monster woman panicked and begged Susei not to push her, wanting to understand why Kinara had trapped them like that and how they could escape. Susei confirmed that the cocoon was indeed tight, that he could barely move, and that his arms and legs were completely paralyzed. The monster woman grew even more distressed when she noticed her clothes were dissolving in the special web and confessed she felt embarrassed by the situation. Susei, equally uncomfortable, asked her to avoid touching him.
The two were pressed tightly against each other, with no room for any sudden movement. Kinara's web was far too advanced, and neither of them had any idea how to break free or counterattack. Then, the monster woman mentioned that something was bothering her. Susei told her not to touch him and said it was a secret weapon. She insisted he should use it, but he said it was impossible at the moment and asked his insects for help recovering a special talisman. The mosquito goo began pulling the talisman from the pouch attached to Susei's belt. The insect refused to give up. When it finally retrieved it, Susei explained that it was a thunder talisman and warned that the explosion might injure the monster woman a little. Even so, his companion told him to endure it. It might be what saved them. Meanwhile, Frank watched from afar and told his teammates that the fighters were trapped in a cocoon and unlikely to escape. Because of this, he ordered the group to retreat so the two wouldn't end up defeating the enemy. He even lamented. The woman was incredibly beautiful, but the others didn't value her at all. He considered simply eliminating her and moving on. Maybe they would find another woman to entertain themselves with. But before any decision could be made, an explosion rang out. A flash of lightning illuminated everything, and the group was left confused, unsure of what had happened or who had caused the shock. Susei's strategy had worked. He managed to burst open the cocoon and free himself, allowing them both to escape. The monster woman was stunned to realize the hunter was so powerful. Still partially stuck in the cocoon, she asked her friend for help to get out, but Susei told her she needed to stay still because this part was important. Then, Heiho, the Black Calamity, appeared and asked Susei where the noise had come from. It seemed that Kanara was somewhere nearby, trying to absorb her energy. Startled, Susei wanted to know if Heiho could absorb monsters she didn't fully understand yet. The Black Disaster explained that she could use her body to absorb the monsters and then deliver them to the chief, and Susei was glad to help. Susei said that Kanara was incredibly strong and Heiho might need to channel part of her power through the talisman. Heiho explained that with her current energy, she could only use the technique once. Susei replied that her talisman was unusual and far too powerful. She didn't know its side effects and wasn't willing to take the risk. Heiho agreed and told her to contact him when she was ready so they could show the technique to the chief and teach him how to use it. Meanwhile, he saw a group of hunters and asked his rats how long they intended to stay hidden, thinking no one would notice their actions. Frank told his wife that he had crawled out of hiding after suffering, an act of bravery, and that he wanted to start fighting with a strong squad. His wife remained calm, not showing any nervousness. Lighting a cigarette, Frank said he wanted to destroy everything and that he hated rats and idiots. With conviction, Susei told the hunters they didn't need to worry because fate was already set. Himself would punish the foolish hunters. Frank and his friends laughed at Susei's boldness. He hardly could control his own situation, and yet he dared to impose rules. But then, all of them suddenly froze and pointed at something, telling Frank to look. Confused, he asked what was happening. The motivator of the group realized they had been asked for help locating something, but still had no idea how to proceed.
A massive demon was behind the squad, already capturing one of Frank's companions and threatening to destroy them. The entire squad finally reached the tower. Susawe felt satisfied and praised Sao Yuan for her work, reminding her that her brother had never doubted her and trusted her more than anyone else. Sang Yuan said she was happy to help and that she would obey all her brother's orders, ready to protect him anywhere, even at the cost of her own life. Frank explained to his friends that their enemies had used the demon to capture them, but no one understood why it attacked the squad there. One teammate asked whether the demon shouldn't have attacked the Draugrs first, but Sao Yuan dodged and emerged unscathed. Susawe then told the hunters that he had already realized that they were being watched, and to protect the group, had given Sao Yuan an invisibility talisman so she could pass unnoticed. Susawe explained that she had also given Sao Yuan a powder capable of attracting monsters. The plan was to use the powder to lure the demon, but prevent it from finding Sa. She told the hunters it was a perfect strategy to keep cowards and parasites away, and avoid wasting energy on idiots. Frank and his friends complained to Susawe, saying she had tricked them, and that once the leader arrived, she would be punished for her betrayal. Unbothered, Susawe said she had no time for them, and told them to stay focused, reminding them that the squad's enemy was extremely strong. At that moment, Kinara, in his final form, appeared before the group, ready to attack and protect the area. Susawe stepped forward with courage, but Sao Yuan warned her not to approach her brother, reminding her how dangerous Kinara was.
Even so, Susawe wanted to test her new attack against the monster, expecting him to react, and called for Heiho, the Black Disaster, to help her. Together, they prepared to unleash a special technique. Susawe told her master she was ready for battle, and that the talisman he had given her would not be wasted. Heiho released his power, and Susawe, determined not to abandon her master, prepared to face the enemies. She launched her fire technique, one that reached both earth and sky, aiming it at Kinara, who had the misfortune of becoming her first target. Using the Fire God spell, Susawe sought revenge against the monster for everything he had done. Out of nowhere, Susawe struck Kinara with her full strength, sudden and devastating. No one expected such a powerful attack. Kinara had no time to react or defend himself, and Susawe confidently destroyed the monster at once, shocking even the hunting squad. Kinara, a rank B demon, was defeated quickly by Susawe, who only had a rank C aura. Frank was shaken and began to cry, telling his friends they needed to contact the leader immediately, the strongest one, who would help punish the villain for all his cruel actions. One teammate assured Frank he was already trying to reach him, not wanting to be left out in the battle. The group was still in danger inside the tower, surrounded by the monster but protected by a barrier, too afraid to leave and face the enemy. Kinara continued to terrify and threaten them. Heiho, the black woman, sensed a tempting smell and asked Susawe to take her to Kinara. He hesitated, but he knew he had no choice. Heiho was starving, and the question lingered, would the chief understand her situation?
Susei grabbed Kinara by the neck, feeling his energy flow non-stop, and realized that Heijo hadn't fooled anyone. She asked if that power was part of what Heiho had granted her. The Black Disaster replied that Susei was generous and that it was a shame the chief didn't value her more, admitting they were lucky to have found her. Sang-Wen rescued the monster woman and thanked her sister, while Susei forgot about her for a moment. The monster woman didn't want to free herself from the sticky threads. Then she noticed a badge on the ground and asked who had dropped it. She recognized the symbol as belonging to Susei's apprentice, which made her wonder if the hunter had been right. She needed to test her theory quickly to uncover the truth. Lady Monster grew worried, wondering if the students were truly trapped inside the cocoon. She questioned whether there was any way to save them and counted on her friend's intelligence to figure it out. But Susei said it was useless. Nothing could be done anymore. The monsters had attacked at the worst moment and trapped the students. She told her friends that their chance of salvation was gone, that there was no turning back, and that she was telling the truth. Lady Monster grew sad upon realizing that the school students were no longer alive and that C had failed. She refused to accept it, hoping there might still be a way to bring them back. At that moment, the ground began to shake beneath their feet. Susei wondered if it was an earthquake, but she wasn't sure. She asked Heijo what the Black Disaster was doing, but there were no clear signs in his aura. Something was wrong. Then they realized the giant demon wanted to destroy the place, and they needed to stop him or be buried under the rubble. The ground began to crack, making everyone nervous. The monster was out of control, and they had to calm him down immediately. Suddenly, Sai fell into a hole and wondered why. Heiho, the black creature, told the chief that he enjoyed the screams and moans. The monster woman began calling out for Susei in desperation. While Susei hoped Sue hadn't gotten hurt in the fall and tried to understand why the demon had gone insane and was destroying everything around them, she told the monster woman not to worry. Sai was fine, and Sai Yuan Yuan, sister of Yuan An, needed to protect him because Susei fully trusted her abilities. Heiho, the Black Disaster, sensed the powerful aura and the tower's true essence and told his friend that everything had gone well there. Even so, Heiho explained to Master Susei that he couldn't take command, and the chief commented that everything seemed finished, with no way out. Moments earlier, a squad of white tiger hunters had captured Lao Tian and his friend, showing that threatening Sai by capturing them no longer worked. Master Lao Tian and his colleague explained that they were only Susei's pawns and that they had met her that very day inside the tower. The leader of the squad, White Tiger Gabyao, said he needed them as sacrifices to awaken the tower's master. Rao Tian and his colleague begged for their lives, offering to discuss alternatives and solutions, but the hunter drew a knife and began questioning them, giving them a lesson for what he considered a shameful attempt to rescue Sai. In the next moment, Gai Biao killed Master Lao Tian.
He spared no one and began a powerful ritual in which living souls and vengeful spirits had nowhere to escape. The White Tiger leader absorbed Lao Tian's soul and commanded the spirits to obey his technique. A skull appeared, but Gabiao remained unmoved, keeping everything under control and wanting to teach the insolence a lesson.
Susei then acted. She positioned herself behind Gebiao and began unleashing devastating techniques, combining the 4-star technique, the Wrath of 8 Elements, and the power of the Abyssal Flame God. She summoned a fighting fire monkey against the White Tiger leader, determined to save Master Lao Tian from the bandits. Leader Gabiao was surprised but pleased to finally have someone capable of ending his student's suffering. The comrades and the captive had fallen into the hunter's hands, and he defended himself from Susei's dangerous attack, proving to be a formidable opponent. None of his subordinates had time to react or dodge, and Susei caught them off guard, ready to punish the leader for what he had done. Gebiao, believing his men could escape, realized he had underestimated the situation. Susei hadn't expected Su to be bold enough to investigate everything alone. He had been hurt by the techniques used, and his body was exhausted. He needed rest to recover strength and energy. Even so, the battle continued. A friend asked if Su was all right, and Susei was surprised at how severe Heiho's exhaustion was and how close the catastrophe loomed. Eviao commented that the battle had barely begun and Susei was already on the verge of disaster. Susei demanded that the bastard hand over Sa Yungyang, promising she would kill him quickly instead of torturing everyone. She stated that even when problems appeared, she could solve them easily, for her secret was the faith she carried. And she believed she could also teach the squad leader a lesson. Suddenly, Su ran, telling his colleague they needed to hide from Gebiao. It wasn't the time to fight. The White Tiger squad leader, Gebiao, questioned whether Susei was really running away instead of facing the enemy, since he considered her strong and intelligent. Then Gebiao entered shamanic mode, using the spiritual willow technique, causing human hands to rise from the ground and shocking everyone around. The squad had completely lost sight of their limits. That was a forbidden technique. Gebiao grabbed Susei and her friend, claiming he already possessed the power of a god, while Susei was still weak and hadn't fully developed her abilities. Defiant, she asked if he truly considered himself a god, and why the dog Jidia was also regarded as a divine prodigy. Gebiao asked whether his men had noticed anything, or if he had made a pact with the monster, disregarding the strict laws of their world. To him, no one cared about methods, only about who won or lost. The loser had no right to speak. He grabbed Susei by the collar and demanded she tell him where Sa Yungyang was, but Susei replied that she had no idea. At that moment, a teammate pointed out something and told Gebiao to check it himself. He noticed an important detail. It had been Sa Yungyang who found them, and she and her sister looked alike and were careless. Gebiao was shocked, realizing Sa Yungyang had come to see him. He ordered her not to leave the hiding spot so the enemies wouldn't capture her sister. Meanwhile, the cocoons began to shake, as if ready to burst open. Hungry monsters started emerging, searching for victims and sparing no one.
The tower trembled, and that was undeniable. The monster woman heard the rumbling and had no idea where it came from, realizing that she and Sa Yuan needed to be even more careful with Kinara in the battle. She noticed a cocoon different from the others, something special. The other Kinara monsters began approaching in a strange manner. The monster woman was surprised to see them bowing before the cocoon, not understanding what was happening or where Susei's brother was, the one who could explain everything. Suddenly, someone began to emerge from the cocoon, and both the monster woman and Sa Yuan prepared to fight. If that monster awakened, the Kinara queen would also appear. They recognized the danger. All Kinara were strong and powerful. Sa Yuan was forced to confront the Kinara queen to protect her people. Detecting Sa Yuan, the queen attacked immediately, showing that no one had the right to invade her territory. Kinara struck a blow that wounded Sa Yuan, and the monster woman tried to help her but was seized tightly, unable to escape. Cornered, the monster woman didn't know the queen's intentions, only that she needed to protect herself. Kinara was determined not to let anyone escape who disturbed her peace, and would defend her spiders from any threat. The queen opened her mouth, releasing something terrifying, creating her army and wiping out every enemy nearby. The monster woman realized, horrified,
that the creature had transformed all the students into spiders. Kinara attacked again, injuring her opponent's eye. She was determined to eliminate any enemy with no chance of survival. Lady Monster asked Kinara if she was fleeing, and if so, where. But the queen had already unleashed all her power and fury, trying to infect her. Even so, the monster woman wasn't an ordinary opponent. With courage, she asked Kinara to accept her blood as an offering on behalf of all the innocent students, seeking to protect those who could no longer defend themselves. The monster woman knew her vengeance would bring peace to the students' souls, and her rage against the Kinara was immense. The girls had been kind, but the monster had taken their lives, and she would not forgive that. Lady Monster attacked the Kinara with all her strength, using dangerous and precise techniques, remembering each student she needed to protect. In minutes, she defeated the monsters, showcasing her brilliant skill and her determination for revenge. She explained to Sayuanyuan that she had been forced to use the immature golden silkworm, the mosquito goo, in order to win, ensuring the disciples paid for what they had done. But before she could finish explaining, the monster woman lost consciousness, exhausted after the battle. Zoanwansei approached her and understood the delicate situation. Meanwhile, Gay Bao asked Su where Sayuanyuan was, planning to kidnap her. Sayuanyuan, concerned only with Susei, ignored the other enemies. Gay Bao intended to remove obstacles, capture the sister, and sell her for money, blaming Susei for her own weakness. Susei questioned White Tiger Squad leader Gay Bao why he needed to kidnap Sayuanyuan, suspecting it was only for money, and trying to understand his plan. Gay Bao tried to explain, but before he could finish, a massive monster hand crushed him, killing him instantly. His comrades stepped back, shocked by the monster's strength, realizing it had broken free from Gay Bao's control.
The monster warned that fighting on school grounds was forbidden and that the students had been punished for ignoring the rules. Hevian, Yi Biao's companion, tried to flee while begging for help, but he was also killed by the creature. The monster made it clear that anyone with low grades or who disrespected the rules would receive no mercy. A friend told Susei to run, but she asked him to stay still, knowing they could never outrun the monster's speed and strength. When he asked if they could defeat it by staying put, Susei backed off, realizing this situation demanded caution and strategy, not a head-on fight. Susei and her friend were forced to use a powerful talisman, taking a huge risk as they faced the approaching threat. Susei activated the 8 Directions Ring technique and the 5-Day Demon, expelling impurities and trapping spirits, proving that only he possessed absolute power. At the same time, many fire warriors, armed with talismans meant to calm spirits and ghosts, prepared to confront the violent monster in battle. Heiho, the Black Calamity, warned his followers that 3 specialists were on their way and believed they could hold out until then. Meanwhile, his son was giving everything he had, but the monster began chasing him, testing his techniques and the talisman's strength. In that place, punishment was severe. One mistake meant certain death. Susei and her friend had no choice but to run from the monster, who could defeat them with a single blow. They had no plan and could only think about escaping. A friend asked Susei for a strategy, but he simply said to run, insisting the monster wouldn't catch them if they moved properly. The creature scolded 2 students, saying their behavior tarnished the school's reputation and that he was there to protect that legacy. Susei and her friend, cornered and out of options, felt the end approaching. But just before the monster attacked again, the leader of the Genrong squad, Qin Ziyun, appeared to shield them. Ling Ling, Qin Ziyun's assistant, grabbed Susei and her friend, assuring them they had nothing to fear and were now in good hands, because Ms. Qin Ziyun knew how to defeat the dangerous monster. Susei tried to ask for the bandages to be undone, but Ling Ling explained that they were special, simple to use and even healing, though Susei couldn't understand how Qin had helped them. Shocked, she realized that Qin Ziyun really had come to save them. Ling Ling explained that the tower that had appeared at the school wasn't ordinary. It was formed from the soul of the great god Malraga. Worried, Susei wanted to know more, asking who Malraga was.
Lingling explained that Mauraga fed on one of the three vices: greed, anger, or ignorance, and unfortunately, the school was already full of them. The headmaster and teachers confirmed that Mauraga had reached level A, making him an extremely dangerous opponent. Susei was stunned, realizing she had underestimated Mauraga's strength and the true danger they were facing. The warriors inside the tower had to proceed carefully. Susei turned to Lingling, wondering if the creature could be the school's headmaster, and if that was why he always talked about rules and keeping order. Xinyun told Qinziyun that she had low grades, often argued with teachers, and feared for her life, knowing the headmaster wouldn't forgive her. She confronted the monster, asking him why he called himself headmaster, and telling him not to disgrace the profession because she believed he wasn't worthy of the title.
The headmaster replied that she had disrespected her elders and deserved punishment. With strict gestures, he tried to strike the insolent student. Xinyun skillfully defended herself using 3 Tai Chi techniques, but the monster remained determined to break her spirit. Not hesitating, Xinyun destroyed her opponent with unwavering resolve. Qinziyun, leader of the Jingrong squad, stepped in using the mountain and rivers absorption technique, attacking the headmaster without fear. A deafening crash echoed through the tower. The headmaster was already gravely wounded, and Jin Yun proved to be a far stronger opponent than he ever expected. Heijo told Susei that Qin Yun's level was at least above A rank, and that he had met an extremely competent assistant whose personality Susei greatly admired. Susei remembered that and shared her impressions with Heijo. Heijo, the Black Calamity, mentioned that 3 specialists were on their way, and Susei realized he had forgotten about one of them, but luckily remembered in time. Meanwhile, the monster continued attacking the Black Boar squad. One of the warriors warned his brother that his spiritual energy was fading and that they were running out of strength. The fighter told Frank that everything seemed lost, but suddenly he noticed the tower's leader arriving at the perfect moment to save them. Someone delivered a decisive strike to the monster, ensuring it would no longer attack the squad. Frank and his friends breathed in relief as they realized the threat was being taken care of. The squad leader, the Black Boar warrior Jessica, finally entered the battlefield to help inside the tower. Her intuition was remarkable, and she showed impressive leadership. Jessica scolded her teammates, calling them losers, saying that if she had known she couldn't rely on them, she would have taken on the mission alone from the start. Jessica, leader of the Black Boar squad, told her teammates to stay put and trust her. She promised to handle the tower's problems and ensure everyone made it out without casualties. With firm resolve, she leapt forward, protecting the sacred relic and taking the lead so that no other squad could claim an advantage. Meanwhile, Qinziyun, leader of the Jingrong squad, kept striking the monster with relentless blows, determined not to stop until it was defeated. But the school's director, surprising everyone, silently observed and commented on the disobedient students, saying they refused to listen to their elders and were infuriating. He intended to attack Qinziyun to force respect and impose his authority. Ling Ling, worried, advised Jessica not to expose herself if she didn't have the strength to face the director. Qinziyun, agile and skilled, dodged all dangerous attacks, reacting with extraordinary reflexes. Even so, Ling Ling approached to check on her, and Qinziyun assured her she was unharmed despite the intensity of the battle. Horrified, Ling Ling noticed something strange on the leader's hand. But before she could act, Qinziyun momentarily fell under the monster's attack, though she wasn't in real danger. Susei explained to her friend that even though Qinziyun was powerful, the school director had discovered a weakness. The leader had immense physical strength, but her magical resistance was limited. Surprised, Susei's friend wanted to know more about this vulnerability. Qinziyun was an A-rank warrior who trained the Golden Body, making her nearly indestructible against physical attacks, but any long-range magic put her at a disadvantage. She understood the risk and kept her movements controlled, yet she was still affected by the director's spell.
Ling Ling, also an A rank, served as strategic support. Together, she and Qinziyun could face the monster. But Susei hesitated. He knew Ling Ling didn't have many offensive techniques, but her presence was crucial to balance the fight. The group accepted that with proper coordination, they had a real chance of victory, even against such a dangerous foe. Susei knew the situation looked hopeless, but assured her friend that there was still hope.
There was another specialist besides Jessica, and she wasn't weak. She was used to solving problems quickly. Wielding her weapon, Jessica began using her technique, summoning the wicked souls that had come to this world in vain, promising them eternal peace. She sensed the sacred relic's aura inside the monster, but realized the creature was far stronger than she had imagined. To defeat it, Jessica suggested that Qin Ziyun join forces with her since her sister possessed remarkable combat abilities. Qin Ziyun, surprised, asked who Jessica was and how she knew her. Jessica explained that she was a living legend, having already reached A rank, an achievement even recognized on university entrance exams. She also warned that the school's director was interested in recruiting students, but he wouldn't harm Qin Ziyun's sister. Combining their strength, Jessica, Qin Ziyun, and Ling Ling attacked the monster. Despite its power, the creature stood no chance against the coordination and sheer force of the three. The school director, furious with the unruly students, questioned why they kept defying order. His anger was so intense that even the teachers grew alarmed. He wanted to teach the insolent students a harsh lesson and enforce discipline. Qin Ziyun felt the director's spirit drawing close and wasn't sure how to react, whether she should attack, defend, or simply stay alert. Jessica explained that Qin Ziyun and Ling Ling needed to keep their distance from the teachers, as they had great influence over their minds. The director wasn't an ordinary enemy, and even A-rank hunters struggled to face him. Meanwhile, Suze explained to her friend how she had been freed. The healing bandages she wore would detach on their own after the wounds closed, allowing her to move again. She also mentioned that Lao Tian was about to be released and described the battle happening inside the tower, where 3 A-rank guards were trying to contain the monster. Heijo explained to Suze that if he went there now, he might disrupt the work of the 3 women, and he realized the monster wasn't even fighting with full strength yet. He also mentioned that if the creature absorbed the body of the being above them, it could awaken something even more dangerous. Nervous, Suze asked if he really meant the monster up there, clearly frightened by its power. Heijo, the Black Calamity, confirmed that Suze was right, emphasizing how serious the situation was. Heijo further explained that when the boss leveled up, it could release a creature, but that was not the day. Suze began calling for Sao Yuan, worried, wanting to make sure she was safe and that nothing serious would happen. Inside the dangerous tower, Sao Yuan looked at Suze, ready to help and awaiting his orders. She felt relieved to see he was unharmed and thought Suze was incredible. Suze waved his hands, asking his sister to throw the monster's corpse into the creature's claws so it could be absorbed. Even without spoken words, Sao Yuan understood exactly what her brother wanted. She had known Suze for years and could read his intentions with ease.
The invisible bond between them revealed itself at that moment. When Xiao Yuan began hurling the monster toward her brother, Suze froze in shock at the size of the creature. He noticed that the monster's head alone looked like it weighed tons. Quickly, Suze ordered her to absorb the monster to drastically increase her power. Heijo, the Black Calamity, offered valuable advice to the chief, and her energy helped the absorption process. During the battle, drained of energy, Suze began absorbing the monster and grew curious about what would happen after the fusion. He imagined that in the future, he would reach levels never seen before, and at 15 years old, he would finally break into B rank, something he had chased for a long time despite mockery from other hunters. The ascension was smooth, and Heijo watched without doubt as a rush of euphoria washed over Suze. He was finally free, and no one would bother him again. The newly freed monster perceived the outside world as wonderful, yet strange, comparing the territory to someone's mind, something it didn't fully understand yet. Now free, the creature decided to explore and have fun, limitless power flowing through its body. Concerned, Suze tried to distract the monster within his mind, asking it not to destroy the territory and to calm down first. Suddenly, the Scarlet Phoenix, who had lived for 1,000 years, appeared and seemed ready to crush the monster to a pulp, but her attacks stopped abruptly.
shocking everyone. Susei was stunned as well, not understanding why the monster couldn't harm him and why they had been so lucky. Heijo, the Black Calamity, explained that because they had left the tower, the young man was now the creature's host, and according to the rules, no one was allowed to harm him. Susei asked the Scarlet Phoenix if she could help him defeat the evil monster outside, but the ancient bird simply asked why she should get involved. Heijo, the Black Calamity, told her sister that she had been asleep inside the tower for a long time and her powers were still weakened. That creature outside was far too strong even for the mighty Scarlet Phoenix. She grew furious at the situation, but Heijo warned that young Susei was not worthy of witnessing the full extent of her power. Even so, Susei promised to find other monsters for her to fight. He also explained that 3 A-rank masters were already there and might be able to defeat the threat, asking the Scarlet Phoenix not to push herself too far. Still irritated, the Phoenix unleashed her fury and made it clear she could easily deal with any weak monster. Meanwhile, the school director watched and told the teachers that he appreciated their work, praising the discipline they maintained, though making it clear he would not forgive mistakes. Jessica, Qinzi-Yun, and Lingling stood before the monster, but the cunning director made it difficult for them to find its weaknesses. Then, he opened his mouth and began absorbing the souls of the teachers, showing that he was tired of repeating rules and taking drastic measures. The 3 women realized they wouldn't be able to catch him off guard. The principal was ready to fight endlessly and told the 3 hunters it would be an honor for them to die by his hands. Jessica quickly understood she needed to buy time and decided to try restraining the principal for a few moments while Qinzi-Yun attacked the monster. Together, Jessica and Qinzi-Yun used the Seal of Solomon technique. The principal resisted, but there were 3 of them, and Qinzi-Yun prepared to strike. Jessica bound the principal's hands and signaled to her sister. Qinzi-Yun leapt toward the school principal with a powerful blow, using an extremely dangerous technique. The attack hit its mark with devastating force, causing serious damage, something no mortal could have survived.
Jessica watched, hoping Qinzi-Jun had managed to eliminate the school principal, but he remained standing. The monster also stood still, surprised by the women's skills. The principal praised Qinzi-Jun, admitting that for a mortal, it had been an impressive strike, and he hadn't expected the warriors to be that skilled. The school principal regenerated in front of the 3 women in the tower, declaring himself invincible. No squad had ever managed to defeat him, and it truly seemed impossible. The women acknowledged his strength, but something still lingered in the air. Scarlet Phoenix realized the principal's power came from the evil spirits inside him, spirits fueled by boundless resentment and rage. As long as those spirits remained within his body, he would be unbeatable. Suz was shocked by the revelation and wondered if anyone was still alive inside the tower. Without hesitation, Scarlet Phoenix told Suz to stop talking and sit with her back turned. The Phoenix needed to possess the girl's body to draw a talisman. Suz followed the instructions nervously, asking if everything was being done correctly and if it was urgent to trap the principal. Before she could finish, Scarlet Phoenix leapt forward, grabbed Suz by the neck, and ordered her not to move. Suz wished she could enter Master Su's body at that moment. The Phoenix asked who Suz wanted to have inhabit her body and told her to hold the brush tightly without getting in the way. Together, they could defeat the enemy. Suz drew the talisman and handed it to her friend, who examined it and said it would work, even if it wasn't perfect. It was urgent to act. The Phoenix assured her that the technique would work and the principal would fall soon. Suz began applying the technique, which was based on truth, and Scarlet Phoenix enhanced it with her own power. The evil spirits had already weakened and forgotten their own forms, but the enemy still couldn't hide. At that moment, a gigantic creature appeared, summoned by Suz and the Phoenix. They wouldn't give the principal any chance. Suz charged with strength, and the principal had the misfortune of crossing her path inside the tower. The massive warrior continued chasing him, while Scarlet Phoenix, sensing a weakness, rushed to assist Suz. The principal tried to escape, but there was no way out. Against Suz and the Phoenix, he stood no chance. Suz declared that the evil spirits had nowhere left to hide and that her technique would defeat him.
She remembered how the principal had mocked her friends in battle. The warrior brought the principal down, ordering him to kneel and prepare to answer. Suze explained that, driven by greed, the principal had obtained a power that didn't belong to him, acting without fear of anyone. Then, she absorbed the principal's energy, returning to her true form, exhausted from the battle. Enraged, the principal still bragged about being a great god and scorned any mortal who dared to face him. Suze wanted to humiliate the principal, to teach him a lesson for his mistakes, but instead of giving in to anger, she used her technique and declared that he was nothing before her. His threats were empty and his fate was sealed. He would die. A massive warrior then grabbed the principal, declaring that the monster was trapped and would disappear forever, never hurting anyone again.
The principal opened his mouth, something gleaming inside, but Suze couldn't forget the students who had lost their lives. Despite her sadness, she remembered them and felt the importance of protecting them. Jessica became excited when she realized the sacred relic was involved, remembering all the times she had helped Kinziloon and her friends. She saw the relic inside the monster's mouth and wanted to understand its value, even though the situation was dangerous. Then, unexpectedly, Jessica used the Seal of Solomon to trap the squad leader, Jin Rong. She pushed Kinziloon aside, declaring that the relic was hers and wouldn't be given to anyone. She wouldn't betray anyone. Her struggle and sacrifices couldn't be in vain. She almost managed to pull the relic from the monster as her fierce boar squad advanced. But someone managed to snatch the relic from her hands, forcing Jessica to explain her behavior. Sang-Win attacked her, revealing that her own sister had set the trap, pretending to be a friend just to steal the relic. Jessica realized she couldn't take it away without being noticed, and her teammates uncovered her plans. Suze apologized, admitting that Jessica's help had been essential to defeating the monster, even if the plan hadn't worked out. While Linlin Kura treated the monster woman's injuries, Suze commented that Jessica would be a great addition to the team because of her strategic intelligence. She explained that if Sang-Won had mistaken the relic for the core, she could have ruined their friendship. Jessica asked whether Suze truly didn't want to hand over the relic, and whether this could cause serious trouble. Tension rose when Jessica realized her opponents were clever and well-prepared. She told Suze and Kinziloon to check a nearby area, and they found cocoons with students inside, still showing signs of life. Everyone was shocked and delighted. There were finally survivors. They had to search the entire region to rescue them. With June, leader of the Jin Rong squad, gone, Jessica stood bold and caught everyone off guard. She demanded that Suze hand over the relic, threatening that otherwise all the students would die and Suze would be responsible. The warrior then threw the relic to Jessica, asking her to promise to protect his friends and not hurt them. But the squad leader, Sin-Yoon, ignored the warning. Leaving Jessica suspicious, she sensed that Suze had a plan and watched closely, trying to understand the situation.
While Hung-Gai stood in shock, worried about the student's safety, Jessica noticed how Suze had linked the talisman to the relic, creating a brilliant strategy. Suddenly, Suze began using her technique, preventing Jessica from grabbing the relic. A bright flash drew her attention, and she wondered whether she had been tricked. Then, a gigantic monster appeared before her, summoned by the cell itself. Jessica didn't understand where it had come from, but she knew it couldn't be ignored. The monster intended to punish Jessica for her actions, and as it began to possess her, she became trapped until receiving orders from Suze. Shin Ziyun, curious, asked where Suze had learned such a rare technique, while Jessica never expected to fail. Kim Ziyun observed and commented that the technique was powerful but repulsive, something few would dare to use. Suze explained to Jessica that the talisman, Bill of the Black Calamity, had the power to see the opponent's heart and destroy it from the inside. Determined, Jessica decided she wouldn't die there. She knew she had much to do and wouldn't be defeated by such a rare technique, even underestimated by her teammates. She began to conjure her own spell, using her technique to survive, take her fate into her own hands, and protect herself. She screamed, activating her power, promising revenge, and reminding everyone of the strange ability she mastered, warning that they would still witness her strength. Her friends wondered if Jessica had escaped, and Kensalian realized she had. She had apparently used teleportation magic to leave the tower. Kensalian explained that this technique could only be used by transferring the physical body, and that Jessica had been prepared to apply her unusual skills.
Meanwhile, Lady Monster High lost consciousness, and Lingling asked her sister not to move as her wound had reopened and needed immediate care. Hedjo Black Disaster questioned whether Jessica had simply run away, and Scarlet Phoenix decided that since there was no fight, she would return home to rest. Suze, however, had other concerns. Scarlet Phoenix spoke about the talisman she had drawn on the ground, and Master Subeta, seeing it for the first time, warned Hedjo Black Disaster to worry about the consequences of using it, since he knew nothing about the technique. Shinzian and Zan Yuan heard noises and were surprised by something unexpected. Suze had transformed into a cat. Heijo, the Black Calamity, remarked that if the boss weren't so strong, using the seal could have caused major trouble. Hedjo Black Disaster told Suze that in that form, he looked defenseless, an adorable kitten that made people want to hug him. Lingling and Zan Yuan asked Suze's brother if he had really turned into a cat, and whether he understood the side effects. Kinsilion clarified that he was not a cat, but the sacred beast Baisei. Lingling thanked him for the information about Baisei, and Shinzian advised Zan Yuan not to worry, explaining that the transformation was a consequence of the talisman, and that Suze only wanted to protect her friends. In time, Suze would return to human form, and everyone would have to take care of the people around them. Shinzian asked Zan Yuan to look after the treasures and never abandon Suze in times of danger. Zan Yuan agreed and promised to protect the master from any enemy. Kinsilion told Lingling that the survivors were still inside the tower and needed to be evacuated. It was no coincidence that everyone had ended up there. Suze's friend told Zan Yuan that if he wished, he could accompany them and receive shelter along with the others.
The group knew the protection over the sister was temporary, but they were determined not to abandon her. A friend suggested that Cyan Yuan see this as an act of gratitude towards Susei for saving them. Susei's brother, meanwhile, managed to protect all his friends from any monster. Cyan Yuan never imagined that Susei had so many allies willing to help her. The leader of the White Tiger Squad, Jivion, lay injured on the ground, unable to stand, crushed by a monster's blow. He remembered the attack and the insolence, vowing revenge if he survived. After the confrontation, Susei's friends took her brother to Area 26, hoping he would wake up and recover his form. Susei opened her eyes and saw Cyan Yuan. It seemed her sister had already absorbed the boss's core and was about to reach a new breakthrough. He felt happy for her. The Twin Towers, which had appeared 10 years earlier, destroying entire neighborhoods, created impassable zones for the rich. Susei was shocked, trying to understand her position, her hands, and what was happening to her body. She felt light, almost out of control, as though she had already transformed. She turned and saw the woman's hand extended toward her, a moment she had awaited for a long time. Time passed, and everyone felt relieved to finally be safe. Lady Monster Hung Gai hugged the cat, surprised by how cute he was. He couldn't speak like a human, but he wanted to take care of the situation. Cyan Yuan's body overflowed with strength and energy. Hongilta approached and asked for the cat to be held, promising never to let him go. Lady Monster Hung Gai commented that the cat was dirty and took care of him, giving him a gentle bath. Suji was delighted, watching her feline friend and the peaceful life he seemed to have. Even Susei's transformation into a cat hadn't been so bad. He had experienced a perfect illusion, and his feline aura pleased everyone. Heijo Black Disaster warned that the effect of the transformation was about to end and that Susei would return to human form. It was true. Susei understood that Heijo's words foretold disaster, leaving her completely shocked by the warning. Honai would soon learn about it as well. Susei was being followed all the way to the bathroom. Suddenly, she remembered something important. She could lose the trust and respect of Hongjae and Hell, who had warned her too late about the disaster. She realized she wasn't wearing any clothes, a consequence of having transformed into a cat the previous day, and knew that Honai needed to see her for safety reasons. Honai tried to pick up the cat to give it a bath, but the animal meowed, and Susei couldn't explain the psychological trauma that caused her. The situation seemed impossible to solve. When Honai held Susei in her arms, he returned to human form, trying to warn her, but it was already too late. Nervous, Susei searched for a way out, while Honai insisted on hearing her friend's explanation, creating an absurd and embarrassing scene.
Juan-Yoon looked at her friend's body and assured everyone it wasn't what it looked like, reminding them that Susei's brother was a good person. When she entered, she asked Saenyuan where all their friends and Susei were. Saenyun pointed to the bathroom, explaining that Susei's brother was still in there transformed as a cat.
Shinsen was relieved, and Lingling explained to her sister that the animal wasn't just a cat, but Susei's transformed form, asking her to keep that in mind. Suddenly, they heard a scream coming from the bathroom, and everyone ran to see what had happened. Startled, Hong-ai accidentally punched Susei, and he tried to explain, but no one believed him. Cindy Jun and Lingling burst into laughter. Susei had returned to his human form at the worst possible moment, and everyone wondered why he was in the bathroom with Hong-ai. San-Yuan grabbed a bowl from his friend's hands and realized Susei was hiding something important, a device essential for the girls. Shinsun and Lingling were shocked, and Hong-ai, traumatized for the second time that day, couldn't recover. Shinsun then explained that it was the relic known as the Compass of Wishes, capable of granting any desire by pointing to the correct direction with its light. It was one of the 7 great relics, and a drop of blood was necessary to tame it. That was how they found its master. Shin-seon warned Susei that the compass was broken, the Pearl of Wishes was missing. He said that if they wanted, they could search for the missing piece. Susei remembered that her Uncle Boo had disappeared, and that to save him, it didn't matter whether he was still alive. She felt it was her duty to find him, even if he had become a zombie. When she looked at the relic, Susei recalled her childhood and the day Uncle Boo vanished, a tragedy she never forgot. She sat beside San-Yuan and called him Uncle Boo, thinking about how much she had always loved and cared for him. Her uncle had been kind, always fighting monsters and protecting Susei and San-Yuan, making sure they escaped before the demons caught them. To gain enough experience and strength to find her master, Susei became a demon hunter, but even then, she had never succeeded. Shin-seon suggested that Susei should visit her squad, believing that the demon suppression office might have information about Uncle Boo. Susei refused, wary of the rumors that not everything inside the office was what it seemed. Sinun volunteered to look for information and collect all the items found at the school. He handed the backpack to Susei, promising a good reward, and asked San-Yuan to grab it quickly. The monster Hong-ai tried to convince Susei to join his squad, praising her combat skills and stressing how important it was to protect her brother. But Susei quickly left with San-Yuan. Hong-ai warned her that she wouldn't be accepted into the detachment because it was too dangerous. Later, Susei and San-Yuan arrived at the office. Master Su presented the beautiful administrator with a B-level task. She was surprised and asked if Susei had really completed Brank's mission and whether she distrusted her brother. The administrator questioned whether Susei would accept the case without being certain, asking her to calculate the reward quickly. At that moment, the compass reacted, searching for the missing piece, confirming that Kim Si-yoon had been right. Susei then saw her new mission on the screen: pacify the Forbidden Zone, an area used for demon containment. It was an A-level task. Shocked and curious, she found the mission interesting and formally requested to accept it. Eager to see if she would find what she needed, Susei received her new A-level mission and asked the administrator to show all the details. He explained that the last time Susei had completed that task had been an exception, and questioned whether she had proof of it. Susei pulled out a bag and handed it to the administrator, explaining that it contained the items from the girls' school tower, anticipating that she would ask for them.